Welcome to the second half of the Flashback review for the 2014 season 3, that is. And I'm going to continue with the Rocky series, starting with Rocky 3, a series that is pretty much long overdue in terms of this series because originally I was going to talk about it a few months back, but the audio died on me. So it pretty much forced me to make it a second half of the season, which is not bad because it gives me a chance to really analyze this movie, which is very interesting about this movie. It's very interesting about the Rocky series in general because if you look at the first two versus the other films that came out there, you start to see a big shift in fan base. Fans are more acceptable towards the other two Rocky films, minus five and even six to an extent, than they were with 1 and 2. Surprisingly enough, fans were not too fond of the first two Rocky films, particularly the first one. A lot of people really have, especially those who are now seeing it for the first time or who hasn't grown up in the 70s and understand what the premises of Rocky is really all about, really don't have very fondness of the particular first film. It makes me worried about the Rocky Broadway show that is actually on previews now and actually will start being in premiere later on during this week. And the main reason is because Rocky, the original movie, the original story of Rocky, was not a boxing movie. It was a love story. It was a love story who happens, the protagonist happens to be a boxer, and that was the main premise of it. He was a pretty much boxer, not in much luck, fighting in the most dirtiest of slums, and he fell in love with a bookish type female who worked in a pet shop. And from out that premises, you see how they develop, you see how their friendship developed, and you see how their love for each other developed, as well as the friendship, which was pretty much an on and off thing between him and Polly. You also see the opportunity of him becoming the possible champion, the underdog against Apollo Creed. You also see the effect he had towards him, even towards the ending when it finally became a boxing fight. You knew automatically that he had no chance of winning, but you was actually hoping he achieved the one thing that he wanted to do, and that is go the distance, because no one ever went the distance between Apollo Creed. That was the main premises of that very first movie. On to two is pretty much the aftermath of that. We saw the cause, and we saw the effects, and we saw what was happening between these two athletes. We've seen how Rocky got married. We've seen what happened between him and Adrian. We've seen the effects of the relationship between the two, and in the end, we saw how it really, that one match weighed in on both Rocky, Adrian, and Apollo Creed, and that what made that film so good. It wasn't like the first one, but it really was close to a connecting sequel that it should be. And to me, it was like a closing chapter to the first two Rocky films. And I say that for a reason, because once 2 was done, Sylvester Stallone, who had directed 3 and 4, went a totally different direction. And despite how the critics may feel, because the critics hated that move, it wasn't what they come to expect. They felt that it moved away from what made Rocky 1 and 2 such lovable darlings towards the critics. I felt it was necessary for a lot of reasons. One, you can't go back to the love story again. It's done. You can't go back to that constant struggle. It's done. It needed to go a new direction. And that direction means more action-based, more of a popcorn film, which it has become. This is what a lot of the fans actually want in a Rocky film. A lot of the people actually enjoyed the craziness that was going on in the Rocky film. The fights in the Rocky film, which was more towards 3 and 4 than the other two combined, and that's something that I think a lot of people was aching for. And to be honest with you, these are the ones that people cling on to the most because of the memorable and crazy scenes that the Rocky series have had throughout from here on out. And 3 pretty much was the starting point. Needless to say, did I enjoy it? Yes, I did. I actually liked this film a lot. It was actually fun to watch. But it does come with some problems. It does come with some things that I kind of wish they actually improved on or completely ignored entirely. Let me first start off how this film starts off. It starts off with a montage. We see him rise into the ranks. And the montage, by the way, is played through one of the best movie themes of all time, Survivor's Eye of the Tiger. I mean, if you lived in the 80s and you hear that song, it matched perfectly with this movie. This is one of the greatest hit singles that was played on the radio, and if you hear it, there's no question as to why. And it played perfectly with the montage. And we're seeing a lot of things happening in this montage. We see Rocky rise in the ranks. We see him getting wealthier, richer, and more popular. At the same time, we also see another figure, Clubber Lang, who's watching these fights and is not happy at what he's seeing. And that's largely because he feels these opponents that Rocky is facing are nowhere near what he should be facing. They're nobodies. They're punks. They're not hungry, and he's hungry. And after a while, you start to see him get to the point where he's getting up, and now he's training, and now he's competing, and now he's rising into the ranks. So this threat that is slowly creeping up on Rocky, which he's not really much aware of because of Mick, and I'll get to that in a minute. You're seeing that happen, and at the same time, you're seeing Rocky climb up. You see him becoming, a major star. You see him get him endorsements. You see him doing a whole lot of stuff here. And at the same time, you also see a jealousy. While Adrian is supporting and more supportive in the whole entire series combined in this movie, you also see Polly, who's looking on and not being very happy. There's a jealousy that is going on there, and this is where my problem lies here. After they show that montage and they show the credits of Rocky 3, which they didn't show until after the montage, you start to see something brewing to the point where Apollo went to the arcade, threw his liquor bottle at the ping pong machine that has Rocky's face on it, and the film starts to get into this whole argument between Rocky, who's now clean up, good looking, he has the best hair in the world. You see Polly, who's had this bitterness, this anger, and it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it pretty much solved itself within the first 10 minutes of this film, and that's minus the montage. It pretty much solved itself, and I'm like, they really didn't need to go that deep into it unless they was actually going to play into it. I kind of wish they didn't have to do that, but it was there, and needless to say, I really didn't care for it. There is another scene here, and I'm going right quickly into this because this is one that is probably one of the most, why was this here? This didn't need to be here, but I'm glad it's here scenes in the entire film, and that is the infamous mixed match between Rocky the Boxer and Thunder Lips, the wrestler played by Hulk Hogan. Every time I see this scene, I just laugh. It's so crazy, it's so entertaining. It's so much fun to watch, but come on, guys, it had nothing to do with this film. Most of the first 30 minutes of this film almost have nothing to do with what was actually going to be the film, and that's largely because of all the stuff that's going on. It did set up one thing, and it was very obvious from the beginning that this was actually going to happen. And it set up Mick, and you see Mickey having a mild heart attack, and you right there knew that he was not going to be around too much longer in this film. It's just a question of when and where and how they was going to go about doing it, which I think they did good on that spot, despite some of the question marks that left a lot of audience wondering. But in any case, after you get all that situation, we have, again, Clubber Lang watching the thing, watching this whole crazy thing that's going on, and he just left. And then we have the other scene where we finally get to the actual plot of the movie. Notice I haven't said anything about the plot yet because, frankly, once you get through the montage, once you get through the unnecessary argument between him and Paulie, once you definitely get through that mixed match between him and Hogan, you really didn't have anything going yet. Nothing really was set in stone until he gets honored at the very steps that he had ran in the first two films, the statue's name and its honor, and he's supposed to announce his retirement, and then Clubber Lang came along, and I'm going to say right now, to this date, he is the only true bad guy in this whole entire film. Clubber Lang is pretty much the over-the-top villain that Rocky did not have in the first two films, and he's up there insulting him, saying he's a nobody, he didn't face nobody, and basically once he insulted his wife, and you know you're not supposed to insult Rocky's wife. That's when he accepted the challenge from him. Mickey didn't want to train him, of course. Mickey pretty much told him that the reason why he won those fights because the guys who he put up against, although they were real, they wasn't hungry. They didn't have that passion that he once has. And that's where the film, basically the principal theme of the film is Eye of the Tiger, the passion to continue doing what he's doing. And what makes one of these montages so special in the beginning is you see it. If you want to look carefully, you actually see as he gotten more and more famous, the passion, the love for the sport that he once had started to dim down. And nothing was more further than that than the fact that when he went to finally train, he didn't train. He had all sorts of other stuff going on where he's supposed to be training and training hard. He didn't took this fight seriously, and most importantly, he didn't took his training seriously. And it drove me nuts. I'm like looking at this guy, I said, do you know who you're facing? You're facing Mr. T, man. You're facing the guy from the A team. How are you not taking this guy seriously? Things took a very dark turn when Mickey got pushed by Clubber Lang. He was put to the back of the locker room for reasons I do not know why they didn't put him in the hospital. This was one of the things that scratches my head, scratches everybody else's head. But obviously they needed something to actually give Burgess Meredith his exit as Mickey. Rocky lost, of course, and he lost brutally. Came back, lied to Mickey, saying that he won, and Mickey pretty much died in his arms. I will tell you, even though I sort of expected this to happen, it still shook me. I mean, my hands were shaking at the fact that this character was leaving. I was very, very not feeling very well seeing that one scene, and that's how powerful that scene is. Even though it pretty much threw it out there that he was not going to be in any other sequels if they ever made a sequel at that time. The fact that his death shook me, and it still saddens me. It's one of the most saddening deaths of a character because this was one of the well-developed characters in the Rocky series next to Apollo Creed. I felt more for him, in fact, than I ever felt for Apollo Creed was, and that's largely because of something they did in the fourth film that I will talk about later. But needless to say, when he died, I felt it. And it was not good. And then the film had a slow pace where you see Rocky being depressed. You see him basically throwing his helmet at the statue. You're just seeing him just basically being down. And then we have Apollo Creed comes in, and I've said this before, and I made a blog on this. I made a blog of one of the greatest co-stars that actually pretty much, if not stole the show, but pretty much helped the film along. Apollo Creed, in my opinion, is the number one co-character that wasn't really the main star, but still might as well be the main star, because without Apollo Creed, without that character, which was so well developed, so well played by Carl Weathers, Rocky wouldn't be Rocky the way it is. I'm just throwing it out there. He makes Rocky what Rocky is to everybody right now because of what he have done. He gave him Rocky a shot and won. He gave him the rematch in 2, and here he actually helped Rocky get his flair back, get his fire back. It wasn't easy. Of course, he still was down himself, and throughout the training, during his first training, which he's training in an actual gym, and he's trying to help him. You can tell that the fact that what Mickey told him had wore down on him. He's not too sure that he can actually beat Apollo. He's not too sure, and that is a sense of fear that he has. He doesn't know he can beat him, and that's the kind of thing that wore down. And surprisingly, the person who actually snapped him out of it is actually Adrian, which is kind of weird because, and I say this why, because Adrian, as you all know, in the second movie, didn't want him to fight. In this one, she's been more supportive. So you would think that if I don't say nothing, we would just go home and just forget about this. But no, she basically said, do it for the right reasons. We're going to support you. And pretty much that's when we have the R&B version of Getting Strong now, And we see the montage of him getting good, getting better, getting training good. He's fighting like Apollo Creed, which leads to the fight scene in Madison Square Garden. And I'm gonna tell you right now, as much as I enjoyed the boxing scene between him and Mr. T, this was the most unconvincing boxing scene in the entire franchise, and I tell you why. If you hear the shots they was giving them, there is no way neither of these boxers could be alive. Neither of these characters should have been dead during the first blow. That's how powerful they made these punches are. There's no way in the world a human being could take that much punches and still stand up. I know people who got hit like this and they never got back up. I've seen boxing matches like that, and it still shakes me to the core that actually happened. One of the reasons why they actually changed some of the rules in boxing is because people was dying in the ring after being hit too many times in the head, and the referee didn't stop it. So the fact that you're hearing these bombs being hit, it's just like, wow, you really over exaggerating these hits. But in every case, it was a 3 round match. Rocky dominated the first round, of course. The second round, Apollo Creed actually was just wearing on him, and then the third match, people said this was the poor man's version of the rope a dope that Muhammad Ali did. I just think it was a suicide because he was letting the guy hit him, and eventually he came back and basically beat him, and he won the title back. The film ended as well as it should because one of the main agreement that Apollo Creed had is Rocky owes him a favor, and we don't know what this favor is. It's kind of curious to me because he's kept on saying, "Remember, after this, you owe me a favor." And I'm like, what is this favor that you were so hanging on to? And apparently, it was an empty arena with Rocky and Apollo fighting each other. This in a friendly competition, friendly sportsmanship. And I like that scene for a lot of reasons because it shows that the friendship between them and plus the ego these both have. And way the two boxers collide, it was actually pretty good. And hearing Eye of the Tiger being played on the credits really solidifies just how important these two characters are in the film. Again, I really did enjoy this movie. It was fun, it was entertaining, and to me, I say this again, this was the movie that a lot of people wanted Rocky to be all along. As much as people like the drama behind it, many people really wanted it to be more of an action type Rocky film, and they got their wish. Critics, on the other hand, really didn't like this movie. A lot of critics really bashed this film. I know it has, I think it's 60 or 70 as the last time I checked on Rotten Tomatoes. But the critics back then was very disappointed. They thought this film was gotten too goofy, gotten too stupid, and there are some definitely goofy elements in this film, let's be honest. My beef with the film, and these are very things that I think nobody's secreted, is that they had some plots, they had some subplots that didn't need to be there. The one I definitely didn't like was Sylvester Stallone's Rocky and Paulie in the beginning of the film, because they really wasn't going to touch on it again. You knew wasn't going to touch on it again, and what happened after that whole thing happened? Nothing. Everything got resolved. He got a job with him, and that was it. Let's be honest, it's the most ridiculous scene in the whole entire film. I still enjoy it, and that was the mixed match between Rocky and Hogan. It really had nothing to do with the plot, had nothing to do with anything else in that entire film. It was never mentioned again, but damn it, I was glad it was there. I think the main problem is that some of the pacing in the second half really slowed down. It really went to almost a crawl. Even when they was when Apollo came in the scene, there was a lot of stuff. The pacing really was good and then not so good, and that really bothered me a little bit because I really wanted the film to speed up. This is the kind of film that really needed to speed up, and for some reason, after Mickey's death, it really did slow down in that category. But it did manage to pick it up in due time, and I think the person who was in charge of the boxing effects, I think he was going for the thing how powerful these punches were. It just sounded unconvincing. It really did. Didn't hurt my feeling in watching this film. It was fun. It was thrilling, entertaining. You really wanted to see Rocky beat Clubber Lang in this movie because he was a scumbag, and really there was no real friendship between those two at all. So you was rooting for it, and in the end, you know who's going to win. But it was fun to watch, despite the fact that no one can convince me those are actual punches. Um, Other than that, I think the script was fine. I thought that what Sylvester Stallone had done for the most part was a hit to me. Again, he couldn't do on three the same way he did one and two. It wouldn't make any sense to do that. Those two, in my opinion, are two different films, and the third one and the fourth one are also different films within their own rank. I will say this as a negative, and not to take anything away from Mr. T. I know this was his first outing, I believe, as a movie star. He is not a well charismatic present in this movie. You know, I haven't said too much about him unless he's actually in this review, and that's largely because there's really nothing much to him. Unlike Apollo Creed, which has a lot to offer in the screen and is the most memorable character in cinema history, Apollo Creed was just there just to be the bad guy of the week. And that was it. Strangely enough, he has less charismatic than Ivan Drago, and Ivan Drago had no lines. And I'll get to him in a minute because man, there's a lot of history between that one and the fourth one. But that was the whole thing. I think that out of all the characters, I always seem to look at him and say, yeah, there's really not much about this character I can do. His lines was bad. I mean, but I don't blame him as much as I blame the script. The script really didn't give him much to do except just be a total unlikable character, and they did a good job with that. They really did a good job, more than they did with 4. My final verdict on this film, if I may say, is a 3. Again, I understand the critics' complaints because they're all legitimate complaints. There's no way around it. This is a different Rocky film. This is a different Rocky series. Once after 2, but at the same time, I think it was necessary. I don't think you can continue to make a drama, because what are you gonna say? Unless taking the divorce and the boxing match brought them back together, and I'm talking about Adrian and Rocky, there's really no need to go back to that. All right, they're married, they got a child. It ended happily. There was no need to go back to that love story. The love story was done in the first 2 Rocky films. This is a totally different film, and they need to move forward. And I think as much as how goofy it really got after 3, I still think he made the right choice of making this more of an action fun film rather than a long drawn out drama film. And let me tell you right now, I love Rocky 1. I think Rocky 2 was a great follow up towards the original film. But to me, if I'm going to be honest, I thought this was actually a fun film to watch, despite some of its flaws. So that's it for now, guys. This is my opinion. As usual, you guys, if you guys disagree or agree, leave it in the comment section. I'd like to know what you guys feel about this. And more to come. I will continue to do the Rocky review through 4, but that's next week. Until then, this is J77. Say take care, be safe, and I'll talk to you soon.